Located in a remote part of Canada is the Kivalliq region of Nunavut. The entire population, all the residents of an Inuit village, disappeared in November 1930. This story starts with a fur trapper by the name of Joe LaBelle. Up until the mysterious disappearance, this village, by the shore of Lake Anjikuni, was a thriving and bustling community of 30 people, serving as a respite for weary travelers like Joe LaBelle. On a cold November evening, exhausted from walking miles in the snow, Joe LaBelle was excited about the prospects of getting to the village for a much-needed rest and warm meal. As he came into the village, he was met with an eerie silence. Normally there would be activity, even in the evening. His concern grew as he noticed that no smoke was coming from the tops of the huts. This dumbfounded him, as there is always a fire burning, and not to see one from the huts was alarming to say the least. He checked all the huts for signs of life to only find complete and utter abandonment. It was as if everything simply disappeared into the night air. The storehouses where the locals kept their supplies were left untouched. Clothing was left, and to compound the mystery, not a single footprint was seen anywhere. Seeing a fire off in the distance, Joe made his way towards it with trepidation. Upon reaching the fire, all he found was a smoldering pot of burnt stew. Again, the only footprints in the snow were his. Knowing that none of this made sense, and fearing the worst, he set out immediately for a telegraph office some miles away. On his arrival, he sent a telegram to the Royal Mounties, informing them of his bizarre discovery. The next day the Mounties arrived at the ghostly scene to see, in fact, that not a soul was in sight. Launching a massive search party for the residents of the village, what the Mounties found only added to the confusion and mystery. All the sled dogs were buried under a 12-foot snowdrift at the edge of the camp. It appeared that the dogs starved to death. The next discovery proved to be the most strikingly strange. The graves of the Inuit were empty. They were all dug up and the remains were missing. Not only were the living missing, but the dead as well. The fact that the ground was frozen solid as stone wasn't lost on the search party. Later that evening, the Mounties witnessed something never seen before. Off in the distance there was a blue glow. All the men knew it couldn't be the northern lights. This was something completely different, almost artificial in the way the lights behaved. Reports of these strange lights came in from all over the area. The people who lived in this region knew this wasn't normal. The fate of the 30 missing people of this village has never been determined, chalked up to another mystery of living in no man's land. Now for the conspiracy theorist in regard to this story. According to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, this tale is the stuff of urban legend. In Frank Edwards' book Stranger Than Science, which was released in 1959, the story claims that there were over 2,000 people in the village. Even I realize that is extremely improbable. Based solely on the outrageous claim of the population being over 2,000 people in Frank Edwards' book, the entire story has been dismissed as fiction. They went on to claim that the first appearance of this story was indeed in Frank Edwards' book, printed in 1959. The story was further debunked by Brian Dunning in his episode of Skeptoid. Brian's weekly podcast, with over 175,000 listeners, has an audience within the geek and skeptic communities. But what we're not being told is the fact that there is a report of this incident in the RCMP files. However, within that report, it is 30 people missing and 1 grave disturbed. In January of 1931, the Mounties did investigate this case, and it was headed up by a Sergeant J. Nelson. While the RCMP cannot say one way or the other about the fate of these villagers, it is clear that they did disappear, and the event was recorded. And to cloud the picture even more is the credibility of Brian.